In this time of chaos, I'm going to go with Albert Einstein's point of view and read more fairy tales. Chapter 3. Clouds rushed across the sky and thunder rumbled in the distance. Lauren awoke to the sound of a branch scratching against her window. She rubbed the sleep from her eyes, stumbled out of bed, and went to look outside. Michael's face was peering up at her. He held a long branch that he was using to make a scratchy noise on the window pane. Lauren stuck her head out. "What is it?" "There's a big storm coming," Michael said. "We have to go and tie down the boat and pull it farther away from the sea." Lauren dressed quickly and met Michael outside. The wind was blowing harder and fine raindrops were falling as the two friends made their way toward the beach. When they arrived, the sail was already billowing wildly. Michael had to use all his strength to tie it to the mast. "We couldn't have sailed in this weather anyway," Lauren shouted over the crashing waves. They pulled the boat up the beach as far as the pounding sea as they could, but they couldn't pull it away. They couldn't pull it all the way. They would have to leave it where it was, perched awkwardly on its side. The rain was closing in. "The tide will come in too far," Lauren said. "We need to pull the boat back to the dunes. I'll stay here. You go and get the others." "Okay," Michael said, and ran off to get help. Lauren tried to keep the boat upright, but a great gust of wind pulled the plink of a hailstone and made her let go of the mast and run for shelter. "Oh dear," she said, as she bent her head into the storm and ran to the point of the rocks at the far end of the beach. She clambered up the jagged, slippery boulders, holding on to the barnacled outcrops until she reached the top. The wide, flat expanse on top led along the high cliff. Lauren crept cautiously forward, crouching into the wind as she sought the shelter and believed she would find. By the time Michael arrived at Sipho's house, hail was falling and whitening the ground. "I left Lauren," Michael said to Sipho, his heart pounding. "Left her guarding the boat while I came for help." "She might have to run home by now," Sipho said. "She wouldn't stay out in the storm." "I hope she did go home," Michael said, "but she didn't have much time. We have to go and look for her. Let's run to her house and see if she's there." "Wait for the hail to stop. We don't want to have ice falling on our heads." So they waited and watched and waited. It was a long storm. Michael was sure Lauren must have gone home. Sipho thought so too. When afternoon came, the hail stopped. The sun sent a golden ray through the thick banks of the clouds, and the two boys made their way through the muddy puddles to Lauren's house. But Lauren was not home. So this is how it happened, that Lauren's mother and Sipho and Michael and Rukimi and some of their neighborhood friends went down to the beach in the early evening to find Lauren. There was no one on the beach. The boat lay safely on its side. The tide had not reached it. The sand glistened in the evening sun, hard and wet. Only the footprints of seagulls and herons could be seen. In the distance, the cliffs at the point of the rocks plunged into the sea. The group of friends, together with Lauren's mother, clambered up the jagged rocks. The sea crashed below them and showered them with droplets of spray. "It's so high," said Rukimi with dismay. "Why would Lauren have come this way?" No one said anything. Then after a while, Sipho spoke quietly. "There are caves for hiding in beyond the cliffs. I've seen them." The sun went down, the waves turned to gold, and a rainbow spanned the dark clouds that were vanishing in the east. The group of rescuers came to the top of the cliff and walked along the flat, rocky ground. The first star came out and a thin crescent moon rose, but still there was no sign of Lauren. The group carried flashlights, and they suddenly shone them as the sky turned to a deep blanket of blue. Suddenly, Michael gave a shout. "Look!" By the light of the flashlights and the thin crescent moon, Lauren was clearly visible. She was crouching in a large sheltering cave-like overhang. The moon shone brighter. "Here I am," she shouted, carefully climbing out. She gave a cry of relief and ran to hug her mother and her friends. Overjoyed that his friend had been found, Sifo stared at the cave and the crescent moon. His eyes moved from one to the other and back again. Around him, everyone was talking excitedly, but he seemed to be in another world. Then he said to Lauren, "Look, Lauren, there was a reason why you got lost and we had to come find you." Michael and Rukmini and Lauren looked intently at the cave, curving in the light of the crescent moon. "It's a sea, a clear, crisp, curly sea. We must put that into our book," Lauren exclaimed. "I knew it," Michael said excitedly. "There was a reason that we couldn't sail yet. Now that we have the sea, we can go to sea." Everyone, Lauren included, was delighted that Lauren had been found. No one noticed the 4 children quietly singing, "See the sea, sailing with the silvery sea." They returned Lauren safely to her house, and everyone was invited to stay for supper, after which Rukmini ran home with Michael to get the magic book. Soon they were back at Lauren's house. The 4 children sat around Lauren's room, laughing and talking. As they did so, Lauren worked carefully with her pencils. Before long, there was a beautiful new drawing in the magic book. "Look," she cried, "I can do it too. This is like nothing I've ever drawn before." The children looked at the cave. The picture seemed to shine with its own light. Now each one of them knew that they could draw anything in the magic book and it would not be ordinary. "We ought to say something before we leave tomorrow," Michael said softly. "You mean like leave a note?" Rukmini said, "so no one comes to look for us? And no one worries about us," Lauren added. "Good idea," Sifo agreed. "We each leave a note and we meet at sunrise before anyone is awake." That night the boat waited quietly under the bright starry skies for the day that lay ahead. See